So you can't just be calling this program, oh yeah, come here and do this and you'll earn more wages and you'll be ready for this job. And then nobody's ready and they just have a bunch of debt. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Aaliyah with another episode of And I Should Care Because, the podcast where we talk about higher education policy changes and I help you navigate those changes one news story at a time. So this is the second part in our College is a Business, Honey series. The first part, we talked about public versus private and nonprofit versus for-profit schools. So if you did not watch that one, you should probably watch that one first because some of the terms that I talked about are going to be used in this episode. So if you don't know what a for-profit school is versus a nonprofit school, you definitely either want to just pause and Google it, or preferably go check out that other episode first and then watch this one. I'll still be here, I promise. It's the internet. It ain't gonna break. Now we're going to talk about something that is, kind of ongoing in the news. So I need to give you some history first, and then we can talk about what's going on and why it's important for students to understand this, what's going on and how it benefits you. So here we go. And I got my notes next to me again just because there's so much information. And I say that and I probably won't even look at it. But it's here like my security blanket, I want to make sure that I do right by y'all. I want to give you the information accurately and then give you my perspective on it. And I don't want to leave anything out or be biased. I'm a person, so I have my own biases, right? But I want to at least give you the factual information without my bias so that you can at least make an informed decision to say, okay, yeah, she might be right. Or, well, I hear the facts, but I don't know about that, sis. So I want you to actually have that option. All right, so let's get into it. Oh, yeah, don't forget. Look in the description, especially for this one, because there's a research paper summary type thing in there if you're interested in that kind of thing. So there's a news article that kind of summarizes what's going on, and then there's a link within that article that will take you to kind of a briefing. And if you want to, you can click on another link, and then that will take you to the actual, paper type thing. So if you want to look at some primary literature, I encourage you to do so. It's not scary. You may need a dictionary, but that's all right. Learn some new words and read for yourself and make some decisions. Okay, so here we go. We're talking about college and how college is a business. Last time we talked about where the money comes from and how that influences the decisions of schools, and it influences what amenities they have and accountability. Now we're going to talk about the accountability piece. So all businesses have some form of accountability. There's some kind of state, federal regulations on what you can and can't do. How stringent they are, whether or not there's dollars in the budget to actually act on it when people do things wrong, that's a whole different question. So what we're talking about today is the Higher Education Act. The Higher Education Act pretty much says that if you have, one of these general education programs or career-oriented programs, there's got to be some kind of gainful employment that comes out of this. So you can't just be calling this program, oh yeah, come here and do this and you'll earn more wages and you'll be ready for this job, and then nobody's ready and they just have a bunch of debt. So they're saying you can't do this. But there was no definition of what gainful employment actually is. So for a long time, there was this Higher Education Act that didn't really do anything. And it wasn't until 2014, let me check. Yes, 2014, there was the Gainful Employment Rule, which is also abbreviated the GE rule. And that was put in place by the Department of Education. And we're talking about like federal Department of Education that defined gainful employment. So now we have the Higher Education Act, and then we have what it means for gainful employment, so that if a university or college does not meet these requirements with their programs, then there can be some kind of a consequence. Because if you don't know, if you say, oh, well, it has to be it has to be X, but there's no description of X. It's just word, like just some phrase. It can be interpreted a whole bunch of different ways. Like, well, 5 out of 5 million people got jobs, and that's gainful employment, right? So it reduces the vagueness of that phrase. But what does it mean? So I'll put up on the screen what the actual rule was, but just to summarize it, it says, all right, you can't have more than this percentage of your income be student loan payments for your students. So they graduate, they have these student loans due, they make this much money. You can't have your students owing, more than this percentage of their wage. And they talk about it in terms of total income, and they talk about it in terms of discretionary income, which means after you pay for all your bills, so rent or mortgage, vehicle, utilities, so keeping the lights on, keeping the gas on, all that stuff, that's discretionary income. So you can do whatever you want. Netflix is not an essential, so that comes out of discretionary income. Okay. Food, that is necessary, right? So the necessities of life, you pay for all those. What's left is discretionary. So the gainful employment rule has a description of what percentage of student income can be allotted to student loans. And if you exceed that for 2 years consecutively, then you're at risk for losing your federal funding. Now, for-profit schools do receive some federal funding, but again, they're private. So the bulk of their dollars are not coming from state or federal governments. It's coming from tuition, it's coming from private investors and investments, it's coming from, private donations. So there may or may not be a whole lot for them to lose if they lose federal dollars. But if you lose federal dollars, then you're also losing face with the community. Because if it's like, wait a minute, so you mean to tell me that most of the people are not getting jobs like you said they are? And they're leaving with all this debt and then they can't pay it back? And they're defaulting on their loans? So it at least gives you an idea of who is being naughty, right? It's the naughty or nice list. And unfortunately, in the first report of all these different programs, so we're just talking about general education programs, the career-oriented ones where we're talking about, medical field but not being a doctor or a nurse. We're talking about like medical billing and stuff like that. So those types of programs. For-profit schools have the majority of these programs in terms of that's what they do. You're not going to go to a for-profit school because you want to major in chemistry. That's not what they market to. They market to people who are looking for something faster, something that's just going to get them in and out so that they can get a better job and they can start making more money so that they can pay for life and not have to worry. So these general education programs, they have the potential to be a real huge trap. And I for one am glad that it exists. So in 2019, the gainful employment rule was revoked, but now the current administration is trying to reinstate it and actually give it more teeth. So I feel like I went on a tangent a little bit about the for-profit schools, and I forgot one thing. So the for-profit schools in that 2017 report, before things were revoked, showed that even though for-profit schools only made up about 33% of the schools overall offering these programs, the vast majority, it was like 98% or something crazy like that, of the programs that failed were for-profit schools. They were housed at for-profit schools. So that's just to give you the warning. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't, but it means that you need to do your research before you invest in a for-profit school if you're doing one of these programs. So, fast forward, it's now 2022, and the current administration is trying to reinstate the GE rule, so that the Higher Education Act has some teeth again, and federal funding can be removed from schools that are not playing by the rules. I think that's a good thing. It's up to you to make the decision for yourself. But here's what I think benefits you as a student. Okay. Number one, it gives you all of this information gives you the opportunity to make a better informed decision about where to put your dollars. So if you don't know about the gainful employment rule, if you don't even know where to look, that there are these reports that you can look up and see who has been naughty and see, okay, does the program that I want to enroll in, is it on this list? Did it fail? How many people are actually getting gainful employment here after they graduate, and how many people are just, in debt, even more so? Because we're talking about like 50% of students from these for-profit places with these programs defaulting on their loans. That is so super high, it's ridiculous. So you have the ability to be more informed before you even apply to these places if this is reinstated and we get this information again. The second thing is that it provides a higher quality education. So if these schools, and not just the for-profit schools, we're talking about any school, so any university or college that offers these general education programs or the career-oriented programs, they all have to, cut the mustard, as they say. So if they don't do what they're supposed to do and students are not being gainfully employed after completing the program, then they're in danger of losing funding. They don't want to lose funding. So they're going to make sure that the students are being gainfully employed, and they're going to do what needs to be done to get there. So having this act and the rule together gives more teeth so that places act right. And you benefit by getting a better outcome. Connected with that, since there is accountability, it means that you're also going to have better access to more updated technologies, and that there's going to be more of a push for colleges to keep up with the times and to actually provide relevant training that's going to get you jobs in the current market. Now, institutions don't move that fast, so it's not like a technology came out today and tomorrow there's going to be a class on it. No. But maybe in the next couple of years, there's going to be something developed. You're going to see people starting to incorporate it into the curriculum, and then maybe there's going to be a class all on its own. So there's going to be a push to stay updated so that your students aren't falling behind and not being gainfully employed, because then you're going to lose money. So those two kind of go hand in hand. The final thing that I think is a huge plus is that taxpayer dollars, which is, a huge amount of what is being doled out to these places, those dollars are not being squandered on places that are just profiting off of students who are looking for a way out. I think that being able to have some teeth and say, hey, you ain't doing right, so you don't get our money anymore. And then that money can be reallocated to do other things, like for other institutions or for other education-related things. Who's to say that it is going to go to education-related things? But in my mind, that's what it is. Don't take away my joy. So if we're saving taxpayer dollars and not funding these institutions that aren't actually helping students, then we can put those dollars to better use. And I think that that is a huge win. There's so much waste that goes on, not just with our money, but with our time and our effort, that if we can recover some of that and reallocate it to use in other places, that's a huge win. So this has not yet been, actually, reinstated, but there's definitely work to do so. And this paper that I linked below, they just did a study to look at if the proposed changes to the GE rule and reinstating it were to actually be the real rule, how many universities and colleges would fail the test. So I think that's really interesting. Check it out for yourself. And if you're interested in one of these for-profit schools, you're looking at, one of these career-oriented programs, please do your homework. Don't get trapped. Doesn't mean that you can't make a good living afterwards, but make sure that you're actually getting what you need. And maybe you didn't even know about a for-profit school. So just check and make sure. See what kind of school you're going to. Is it private? Is it public? For-profit? Nonprofit? Those things matter. Make sure that it lines up with what you want to do and what you need and what you're trying to do after you graduate. Because it could be a fun campus, but you get a degree that's useless. So make sure the utility is there. You're not paying so that you can go hang out. You're not paying because you think the faculty are nice. You're paying because you're supposed to be getting an education that's going to help you after you graduate to succeed and win at life. So, do your homework. Make sure that the school lines up with what your needs are, your emotional needs, your mental needs, your academic needs, your physical needs if you have some kind of disability or anything like that. And then make your decision and pay your dollars. All right. So this is the second installment of College is a Business, honey. And we're going to have another one. Ask me when? I don't know. But it's definitely something I'm going to continue because it's something that's such a big topic. And I feel like understanding how colleges work will help you make a better decision about where to go and how to use it to your advantage. So, have a great day. Make it a great day for someone else. And I'll see you back here soon. Bye.